The U.S.-North Korea historic summit has kicked off.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un launched their meetings with a handshake. They've now been joined by advisors for a working lunch after holding a one-on-one meeting earlier. North Korea's controversial nuclear program is expected to dominate the talks.
Well, okay, independent international analyst Dr. Tinashe Chuchu joins us now in the studio. Good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us on Afro Breakfast.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, this has been called a historic meeting. Take us back to the history between North Korea and America and why this is being called a historic meeting, a historic summit, and in fact, even a historic handshake, as I'm looking at the images here of that handshake between Trump and Kim.
Yes, this is definitely historic. And the thing is, if we go back, these are two countries that have had a sour relationship since 1950. Actually, Donald Trump is the first sitting U.S. president to meet a North Korean leader. And the last U.S. president to meet a North Korean leader was Bill Clinton in 2009. But the thing is, I think we should be clear that these are two egos meeting.
Right.
And the North Korean supreme leader will have to protect the legacy of his father and his grandfather before his father. So to be honest, I think there's going to be a compromise if any agreement is going to come out of this. Because I think Donald Trump will not want to seem weak and is very close to the second election that might re-elect him. So what I actually think that will happen is that when you look at Obama in 2016, he passed an act that actually made the restrictions on North Korea tighter.
Right.
And this was unanimous. So I really don't think that Congress will overturn such a unanimous act. And at the same time, just last year, Donald Trump even made the restrictions on North Korea tighter. So I actually think that the North Korean leader would probably agree to probably slowing down his nuclear program, but not canceling it completely. I know Donald Trump would go for a complete denuclearization of the program, but I don't see that happening because after 68 years, what is going to change? And when you look at all the sanctions that North Korea has, for instance, if a plane or a ship goes into North Korea, it is banned from the U.S. for at least 180 days. Right. So I don't think all this will change just because they met.
I mean,
yes.
This is a strange relationship. I mean, you've said it, it's two egos meeting. And, the relationship has been frosty at times, and now it's warm again. And then it's this up and down relationship between Trump and Kim Jong-un. Why wouldn't Trump have just left things as they were? I mean, you said the restrictions that Obama had already put in, Trump made tighter last year, and now it seems that he's going back on that. Why this strangely up and down relationship? How is it explainable, to the international community? And I think a lot of people are just completely confused by all of this.
I think Trump really wants to prove he's the great negotiator because, as you know, since George Bush, the U.S. does not negotiate with terrorists, and North Korea is viewed as a terror threat. Right. So I actually think that Trump believes that because he was successful in business, maybe he might be able to sweet talk the supreme leader. But I really don't see that happening, and we are yet to see what is going to happen, but this might take time, considering that North Korea has been fairly successful, regardless of the sanctions, through its trade ties with China. So we are going to see what this meeting will actually produce. But at the same time, I think it's good that the U.S. is now open to dialogue to North Korea.
Now, the issue of the nuclear weapons, which has, of course, been the contentious issue that has sort of taken North Korea out or sort of been pushed out of the sort of international world and so forth and caused those sanctions. I don't particularly see Kim Jong-un going back on that. I mean, this is something that he enjoys doing. He enjoys showing his military might. He enjoys showing, his force in terms of nuclear arms. So what is likely to come out of this? Because is it likely that Kim Jong-un will sort of agree to whatever it is that Trump puts on the table? I understand you're saying this is going to be a negotiation, but it's going to be a very difficult negotiation then, isn't it?
I think it's going to be a really tough negotiation, but at the end of the day, maybe if China plays a part in this negotiation, it might twist Kim's arm, because at the end of the day, China is their largest trading partner. They can still do without the US, but in terms of actually being open to a dialogue, I think President Trump is trying to show that as much as they have ideological differences, they might have a central point or a meeting ground between the two powers. And I think it's also good to mend relations, because if you remember the student tourist, Otto Wambia, who passed in 2017, you know, his passing really made that relations worse, because at the end of the day, this was someone who was 22 years old, who was arrested for stealing or attempting to steal a propaganda poster.
Right.
So I think this meeting is important, maybe for social ties, but in terms of the real issues, I don't see any major changes happening.
And how has this upset or ruffled the feathers of the international community? When I say the international community, I'm speaking about the EU. I'm talking about European nations. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that image that's making the rounds, where you see Angela Merkel sort of being very standoffish with Donald Trump. How much has this affected U.S. relations with the rest of the international community that is opposed to North Korea?
Funny enough, actually, I noticed that most of the powers are hopeful that something will come out of this. But because North Korea is such a large threat to South Korea, they're trying to be very cautious with this. But what's the worst that could happen? These are two countries that didn't talk for the last 68 years. So most of the countries are actually hopeful.
All right. And where does South Korea stand?
South Korea, to be honest, it has always been... it has never been comfortable when it comes to North Korea. So they are hoping that Donald Trump might be successful, but South Korea, they are ready for war at any time, and they've never been comfortable with North Korea.
All right, Dr. Tinashe, it has been a great pleasure speaking to you, Dr. Tinashe Chuchu, independent international analyst, of course, speaking to us about that historic summit that's underway with Trump and Kim Jong-un finally sort of, I suppose, mending the fences, if one can put it that way. Thank you for your time, Dr. Tinashe.